single family homes, and they need to know what to look for. And, they might go in thinking they need a 3,000 square foot house, so like some of those details are online, but not everything. And not everything is in one place. So, if they're not informed, I'd rather them have a resource available on like, what do they look for? Do they look for the ample parking? Do they look for even a certain, I guess the price range varies based on their lending and all that, or how they're acquiring it. But like, do they look for kitchens that are larger? Like just any kind of like thing that you've learned the last few years that isn't going to make them regret having a room here that they converted mistakenly or whatever. Does that make sense?
It sort of does. You're asking, how do we get into the nuances of what people should look for?
Yeah. And like,
so let's do this exercise if it was real. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. And it's not going to be a real far stretch for you because you're essentially this person anyway. One of the biggest conversations we have with investors is, what the hell do I buy? Right. And then the reality of it is like, I can tell you on a regular spreadsheet, hey, we're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-house with 1,500 square feet. And we like more bathrooms. And those are like a starting point. And this goes back to the conversation of what kind of host do you want to be? What kind of properties do you want to be? And the beauty of working with the PadSplit as a product and as a product partner, we're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We have more data than anybody else. So if you were looking for a reason to say, I got this option over here to do co-live-in, and I've got this competitor over here to do co-live-in, ask them how many rooms that they currently manage on their platform. In our world, an answer is 22,000. And I guarantee you that is a fraction of that in whoever you're looking at to compete, one of our competitors or somebody else in the co-living space. So essentially, why do people work with us? We're huge. And that's not even huge because our 22,000 is really small, because in about a year or 2 or 3, we're going to be at 1 million doors or 100,000, 300,000 doors. Right now, we have more data than anybody else. So as an investor, when you're looking around to be like, hey, what markets work? What kind of houses work? What kind of setup in the inside work? That data exists on our platform, and that should be the only thing that you're really concerned about. So as an investor, there's a lot more questions that I would ask you, right? And I want you to consider as you start down this journey, because it's not like buying I guess it is. It's a lot like buying a business. What kind of business do you want to be into? What kind of property and real estate owner do you want to be? I know, because you and I have spoken in the past, you have a day job and you like it because they give you health insurance. That's really the answer, right? Like, why do people really stay? So let's go down and have this conversation between, like 2 working professionals. What kind of real estate owner do you want to be?
In terms of, I do want to manage it, but I don't want 10 rooms where there's an explosion of issues every week. So
here, I'm going to pause you. You think the number of rooms correlates to more friction and chaos?
Yes, just in terms of repairs, maintenance. All of the above, obviously.
Those are 2 distinctly different issues. And I think that's a lot of what you're saying resonates with a lot of people who aren't in our world yet. Because what we essentially end up doing for so much of the beginning conversation is we're dispelling a lot of preconceived notions, fears, and anxieties. And I love this conversation. And this is what's real about it, right? Your anxiety is, I don't want so many people in the house, it's going to cause friction. Mm-hmm. But that's different than wear and tear on the house, right? One is an asset supply question. One is an operational question. Those are 2 different things in the world of concerns to address, and you're wise to think about it, but they're not synonymous. Okay. So let's go back to the question. You want to manage it. What does that mean in your mind?
It means to where it is feasible with my bandwidth, but I'm not dealing with 4 members who have late payments, and
you're going to do that. So let's be real about what we're talking about here. Our world of co-living is designed around affordable housing. The target demographic that we address is under $80,000 of income. That essentially means it's $45,000 of take-home pay. Okay, so it's $1,500 to $1,700 every 2 weeks, essentially, right? Our members are essentially 1 week away, one non-paycheck away from some financial disaster. That's the demographic we serve, right? Our collection rate in our platform tends to be really high, but let's be eyes wide open about who we are servicing. I joke we are the Walmart of housing. In the relative scale of Walmart of housing and Target of housing and Nordstrom of housing, we're designed for workforce housing. Our mathematical model works. 8 streams of income at an average between $600 and $1,000 a month for a single family that you would have normally rented for $2,000 to $2,500 a month. We have the opportunity to net $6,000 to $8,000 a month in gross income. So I'm going to go back to the question again. Are you going to leave your job?
No.
Do you want somebody else to handle the day-to-day management?
Yes, if I still can have enough net revenue.
Exactly. So that is a question for you, the investor. The problem people get into is they buy poorly. There's not enough margin, and they're forced to take on these tasks that they could have otherwise outsourced and actually been the investor type that they want to be. So when I asked you the question about what kind of investor you want to be, it's actually informing the kind of property and deal you have to purchase, because you have to buy it with enough fat and enough margin in there that it allows you to stay in your day job. You want to have input into what kind of environment I create for my members and what kind of experience that I provide. But at the same time, I don't want to go down there and change an air filter.
Yeah.
Right? That's doable on our platform. But this is where the stress and importance of you buying correctly, choosing the right partners you work with in this journey, that's where it really surfaces. So you can go chase 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 3-bath all over the world. But if you're not buying it correctly, where you have enough projected margin versus your expenses, you can't be the type of investor that you want to be. So this is why you ask really good questions, and you're answering them honestly up front, is that what kind of investor do you want to be? What do you want that experience to be for yourself? And then we can reverse engineer that through acquisition, conversion, market selection, screening, what kind of members we're putting in, what kind of culture are we building. That's the secret sauce of working with our platform, because of the 2,000 hosts that we have, none are the same. But how they manage is very similar. There's only so many playbooks that are really, really successful. You should be asking questions around, this is what I want. After I own this property and run it, show me some examples of other people that are doing it like that. And then we can reverse engineer back into which house to buy, because that house is just a physical structure that represents the opportunity. How they operate it is what allows you to stay in your day job, continue to keep your health insurance, get what you actually wanted, which is tax benefits and some residual income on the side, and continue to build wealth. So welcome to the world of being a real estate investor. It's not just buy the property. It is, what kind of real estate investor do I want? Because I have a lot of unhappy real estate investors right now that they bought poorly. And they're like, well, how could I have done it different? Well, you could have worked with somebody who's better educated and had an idea of what you wanted to be in 6 months. And then we could have reverse engineered that, versus you coming into it and saying, do it for me. And then when they do it their way, uninformed of how you want to behave and how you want your life to look like as a real estate investor, be intentional. Have conviction about what you think you want to do, and then that's why you work with somebody on our team, because we can kind of guide you down that path of what kind of investor you want to be.
And in terms of, a lot of these properties have two bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Is it common that you have to add a brand new bathroom in a lot of these circumstances? Like when you're buying a smaller property that like might not accommodate 3 individuals?
Okay. So why do you ask the question?
Because when I've looked for properties, there's, 4-bedroom homes with 1 bathroom, or 2-bedroom, or, 5 bedrooms with 1 bathroom, or, I don't know. I guess I should say like 7 bedrooms with 2 bathrooms. So I'm always trying to think of like those little nuances, like, are most people adding bathrooms? Like, how does that work? And I know that's a different type of question, but
no, it's a perfect question, because all of these little things will inform the property that you ultimately buy. We're spending more time asking questions in the front so that we can say no to more deals in the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just noticed I misspelled your name. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. I thought there was a Y in there. Sorry. My closing attorney, her name is Catherine, and she uses a Y. And I'm like, God, which one is it? Okay. So I digress. The learning and the thing that you're addressing is, I heard more bathrooms are better, right? That's essentially.
Because then you aren't. Yeah.
So let's dispel some rumors, and we're going to take this conversation a whole different way, right? I heard more bathrooms are better. Why is that the case? Okay. The nuanced reason why more bathrooms are better is because people essentially have more privacy, right? They feel like if there's 2 people to a bathroom or 3 people to a bathroom versus like 4 or 5, we say it's a maximum of 4, but like, how do you limit, who uses what bathroom? Those are all operational questions. I, in my house, actually have a lock on the bathroom because I wanted to restrict the number of people who were assigned to a bathroom, not because I didn't want them to have access to a bathroom, but what I wanted to do was reinforce the fact that they had responsibility for cleaning the bathroom. So it wasn't about, do I have more bathrooms for people to use? No, it was more designed around who's going to keep this bathroom clean in between my monthly cleanings. And if I can assign it to 2 people, then there's only a limitation of 2 people who are arguing about who kept it dirty. So it doesn't necessarily mean, 3 bathrooms are perfect for X amount of people or 4 bathrooms are perfect. There's plenty of people that have 8-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, which is a 4-to-1 ratio, and they work.
Really?
Right? So like, it's not to say there's not one specific formula that's the only formula we can use. And that's what makes our marketplace really cool, is it's dynamic. You can have a 10-bedroom, 10-bath and it be highly successful, or you can have an 8-bedroom, 2-bath and it's highly successful, but you better understand what the operations of that house look like so that you can, plan accordingly.
Are there any type of like hard facts for what you look for in a layout?
Yes. Okay. Yes and no is the goofy answer to that question, right? Typically more space is better, right? And so much of this goes back around to your understanding of financing, meaning that like, you can buy a 33,000 square foot house, but if it's going to cost you $600,000, can you afford it? Can your numbers and underwriting afford a $600,000 house? In some unique instances, I know investors that say yes, because they're really good at creative financing. So they're acquiring a $600,000 house at 3% interest in a creative sub 2 or seller finance version, where their monthly payment, their PITI, or principal, interest, tax, and insurance payment, is the same as it would be for a $300,000 house at 8%. So the most important thing is underwriting. The math has to work. And for new investors, that's the last thing they think about because they're kind of viewing it the way that they bought their own house, which is the bank approved me for this amount. Let's go spend that amount because essentially you're going to be paying the mortgage. In our world, it's a business. The house and the revenue that it collects has to pay for the mortgage, has to pay for the utilities, it has to pay for the property management, it has to pay for a rainy day fund if something breaks, like an air conditioner. So it's the math that's the most important. There are very simple answers to say 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom houses are limited in the amount of revenue they can create.
Okay.
But they work in some instances. I have a market in Baltimore where they're townhouses, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom townhouses. So you're capped. But the cost of entry into those markets, it's 60,000, 70,000, 80,000. Versus in Atlanta, the average deal is like 250,000. So therefore, they need 6-bedroom, 7-bedroom, 8 bedrooms worth of income and revenue to justify the acquisition price.
So it depends on the market. There's a lot of nuances there where it's not just cut and dry. This is what you look for. There's just a lot of factors that you have to weigh with an expert.
Yeah. Or somebody that's just willing to kind of educate you or kind of guide you down that path. And that's the questions that you should be asking when you're working with somebody is like, hey, I don't know, but I don't want to be misled. I would like to be educated along the way. Because again, it goes back around to, would you rather learn how to fish or would you rather have somebody give you a fish? And in the real estate space, like you can learn any of this stuff. And it's just a matter of like somebody taking the time to actually teach you. Because with every property that you bring on and you look at like deals, you just get better and better and better. And like these conversations like you and I are having, your preconceived notions start getting dispelled because other investors will have already shown you, oh, I already solved for that. I got creative and I wiggled around it this way and I went around it this way. And, I bought a $600,000 house because it was, had a really good interest rate. Other people will say, they're limited in their thinking. I only look for 7-bedroom, 3-bath houses. And that could work too. You just have to buy it correctly.
So prospective members or active members are okay with having a bathroom typically that they might share with 3 other individuals?
We have tens of thousands of doors that say they do. I think if you called a single member and said, would you prefer 2 bathrooms, 2 people sharing a bathroom or 4? I think they'd tell you 2.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have the capacity to be able to say, more bathrooms, and this is the odd part. If you understand co-living from the sense of like, how do we really make money? We make money if people move in, they're happy, and they stay. So what are the reasons to understand why people leave? And those are the stupid questions that people are not asking because they're so worried about the box. Am I buying right? Am I buying right? I'm like, you could bought perfectly and still have an empty house.
Yeah. You're not.
That's not profitable.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, think about it. Like you're getting into a business where the ultimate business is I'm selling somebody a room to rent by the week and I make the most money when they stay the longest period of time. So welcome to the business world of being an entrepreneur who happens to utilize real estate to make money. The better you understand what customers are looking for. So ironically, people say more bathrooms are better, but they don't tell you why. Here's some reasons why. People book ensuite bathrooms or private bathrooms first. But the downside risk of that is that it costs more because, again, we know that it's a value. So we charge a little bit more. If you get to a certain threshold, 300, 350, 400 a week, that's essentially $1,200 to $1,300 in rent. And that person could eventually say, hey, I want to go live on my own because I have options because I can afford more. Or you can say, hey, 2 bedrooms at $800, $900 a month, 2 bathrooms shared by one person. It could be the perfect sweet spot where that person says, I get enough value, enough privacy, and I'm staying here for the next 2 years.
So if I were to, I'm obviously looking for a property that and maybe this is hypothetical for other hosts, like looking for a property that I can put money into. I need to renovate it in some way. Say it has great floors, great walls, whatever, appliances, and I don't need to put much money into it. But can I add a bathroom just to get that cash out refi?
You just conflated like 15 different things in that simple sentence. And a lot of those things, and I'm not trying to make fun of you. I just wanted to point it out for a lot of people that are kind of saying the same things. Why do you want to do a cash out refi?
Because I have to pay off my HELOC.
There you go. Right? That's a financial mechanical decision. So you're looking for deals where there's enough equity that you're saying, hey, I'm using this financial vehicle, which is a HELOC. So you're going to take an equity position out of your house. The bank says, hey, you've got $300,000 in equity. We'll give you a $200,000 line of credit or a HELOC. So the HELOC, if you understand the mechanics of a HELOC, is as soon as you take it out, the clock starts running on interest, right? You're taking a loan from yourself. So your job is, how do I find deals where I'm buying it deep enough or low enough where I'm buying a $200,000 house. I'm going to use my HELOC to finance it, acquisition and the renovation, so that when this thing is done, an appraiser is going to come in and appraise it high enough that says the bank will allow you to take 75% of this new appraised value. So essentially, here's simple math. I'm going to buy a house for 200. I'm going to need to put 20% down. That's 40 grand. I'm going to have to do $50,000 in renovations. So that's 90 grand, right? So now you have the closing fees. That's another 10 grand. So it's $100,000 out of pocket, right? You go, you do the renovations, the appraiser comes in, and now you want to get out of your HELOC loan and you want to get into a long-term loan. The appraiser comes in and says, well done, Catherine. You got a house that's appraising at $400,000. We will give you a $300,000 loan. Okay, great. You pay back the HELOC, $200,000 goes back in the bank. You get $100,000 distributed to you, and now all of a sudden you have a house that has to do a couple things. I got to cover the debt service on the $400,000 or $300,000 loan that I took out, and then I have to make enough money so that I could pay the property manager, because you said earlier you want to be semi-passive, but I want to be an engaged host, an investor, without having to do screws and changing air filters. So that's how you reverse engineer the numbers into what kind of deal structure, because your limitations going in are the money I have to invest, the money I have to give back, the time frame in which I have to give it back to, and then what kind of property I'm going to ultimately own. So it's a convoluted way of saying, yeah, you can get exactly what you want. But what you're asking is, I need to be more skilled as the buyer investor to be able to identify what kind of property that I have to buy. And it really does come back around to how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, right? But you didn't really know why. Now you have, like, I always joke that, like, in our journey, the investor has several lords that they have to satisfy along the way. And the first lord is my bank that's going to give me the HELOC. Please give me a loan, sir. All right, great. We'll give you a loan up to $200,000. Fantastic. And now we go look for properties. And now we're talking about, the GC and the realtor and the renovations. Great. After that, next lord you have to satisfy is the appraiser. Please, Lord, give me a good enough appraisal so that I can get a loan from the bank again to pay back my other bank. So if you understand who you have to please and what their requirements are, you can always back into them. And you're smart enough, because most real estate investors are smart enough to have a good enough job to invest in real estate. You're smart enough to learn this skill. It's not like rocket science.
Yeah. And once you do it once, it's a lot smoother. So are there a lot of deals right now in markets like Atlanta, or are they hard to come by across all markets just due to
Deals are tough for people who don't have multiple ways of looking at a deal. If you only have one play in your playbook, which is I'm going to go to MLS and Zillow and I'm going to look for a property that is fully renovated, because in your mind, the logical connections are I have to do less renovation and I can get on market faster. In our world, unless you're a cash buyer, that creates downhill financing problems. Is if it's a $300,000 house and you bought it for 300,000, so it's 20% down, 60,000 for that, about 10,000 to close, 70,000 for that, $30,000 for furniture renovations and conversion. So again, now you're at 60 plus 30, $100,000 again. So when you go to refinance, guess what the appraisal on that house is? It's the price that you bought it at. So now you pay 330 for a house that is essentially 300. Bank's only going to give you 75% of the appraised value, which is now, 240 or something like that. So the difference between your 330 total project and 240 is $90,000. And somebody in your stance, that $90,000 you borrowed from your HELOC, you can't pay it back. You get what I'm saying? So everything starts with the financing and has to reverse engineer to what your requirements are, which is I got to go pay this guy back my HELOC so that I can use it again. It limits the kind of deals you can look at. I tend to be a cash buyer, so I look at deals that make sense. But even still, I want to find a deal similar to you because I want my money back out. I don't want to park $100,000 all over the country. It's hard to save $100,000, right?
Yeah.
But if I can leave $10,000 and $20,000, I'll sprinkle those all over the country because I know I'm making a really good return.
Yeah. Because less capital, I mean, that's what we all want, right? Like less capital to do these deals. And
exactly. Because the golden rule is you don't want to buy one. That's a job. You want to buy two or three. Right? At the end of the year, you essentially want to be able to buy one a quarter at some point. And those are the systems that you're really looking at, right?
Yeah.
After you buy your second one, you're like, oh my God, I'm a real estate investor. What did I learn? What were the lessons learned in the first one that I'm going to get better with the second one? And then the third one. And then by the time you're buying your fourth or fifth, it's just systems repeating itself. And now, you are Catherine, the real estate investor who happens to have a W-2 job for health insurance.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. This is really helpful.
It didn't answer any of your simple questions.
I know it didn't, but I understand. It actually helps me understand that there's not just hard facts to go off of.
Yeah.
There's.
Okay. I'm going to make it easy. At this point, I'm going to list the things that we should avoid.
Okay. That's helpful.
As a co-living investor, whether you're going to use PadSplit or whatever the case may be, your neighbors in the neighborhood are the number one risk to your business. If you buy it in an HOA, legally, they have the ability to put liens against your house. Why would you subject yourself to that? When you're in the acquisition phase, you have the ability, because you're the one paying for everything, to make choices on where you want to go. Okay, so number one, your neighbors in the neighborhood are the number one risk to your co-living business.
Okay.
Number two is parking. Reason being, because bad available parking, go back to rule number one, you piss off your neighbors. The neighbors are the ones that are going to call the city. They're going to complain. They're going to make your life a living hell. Okay, be a good neighbor, be a good investor. Essentially, if you know that you're doing something that is out of the ordinary, you're going to stand out a little bit. Make sure your house is the prettiest one on the block. The other part, when you're looking at a house, the smaller the house, the more limited you are on the top line revenue, meaning 3-bedroom houses can only generate 3 bedrooms worth of real investment. That's why townhouses, that's why condos are limiting, because the average market rate rent for a condo or a small townhouse, it's already baked in for how many bedrooms there are. Our model makes sense because we're turning a 4-bedroom house into a 7 or 8-bedroom house. And now look at all these extra streams of revenue. That's the simple math. So when we're looking at a house, the things to avoid, we don't really love septic tanks because they're not physically designed to have 6 or 7 or 8 people living in there. We don't really love super old houses because they have cast iron plumbing and old electrical systems, and you have to put more capital investment into those type of houses. We don't love houses that are in the hood. If you're in the worst neighborhood, the business that you're running is long-term tenure for rent by the room. If Catherine is a 24-year-old teacher and she's like, oh my God, rent by the room, I could pay $800, all utilities included. And she arrives at your house on Friday night and it is scary as hell.
Mhm.
There's 22,000 other rooms that she's going to move into. And you as the investor, the one thing you can't do with your house is pick it up and move it.
Mhm.
Okay. So your customer base has to want to live in your house. The other thing that's really difficult is houses that are like weird structures, because the biggest cost to you is going to be converting from an existing property, which is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, into the asset, which is our business. So if you have these crazy split levels everywhere, how can you make rooms that are going to turn into bedrooms? If you have 15-foot vaulted ceilings, that's a real pain in the ass to put a wall 15 feet up in the air. There's some houses that are really easy to convert. So, understanding that the end product is going to be rent by the room, there's certain house types that are really easy. We love basements because it's additional space that you can monetize. If you're in Florida, if you're in these other states that don't have basements, like we love Florida rooms. We love garages, that people can convert. The thing that you have to consistently think about is, for the member, the experience has to be good, meaning that the air conditioning and the heating have to work in every single bedroom. That's an engineering question that you would never think of, because the person in the furthest room in Houston, Texas, in a house that had the same air conditioning size, they're going to be sweating in the summer, and freezing in the winter, and they're going to transfer. So out goes your revenue. So you have to make sure that you think about it from the member side of how you want to do it. The size of the rooms matters. That's why we look at houses that are typically over 1,800 square feet. Nobody really wants to live in an 8 by 10 square foot bedroom. If you can take a piece of tape into your living room and measure out 8 by 10 and stand in it, lay down on your floor, and you start looking around, would you want to stay there for 6 to 7 to 8, 9 months? Which you, as the investor, that's your target goal. When I work with investors from a consulting standpoint, we want people to stay 8 months. Will they stay in an 8 by 10 room? I'm not sure, right? So historically in the past, I would have said, Catherine, turn that large open living room into 2 bedrooms. Now you have 2 8 by 10s. Will you have had somebody that paid a little bit more if you had left it into one big room?
And stayed longer.
And stayed longer.
Yeah.
So as an investor, we keep using the word passive, which essentially is another fancy word to say calm. I just want calm tenants that are going to stay for a long, calm time so I can just collect easy mailbox money. If you're constantly turning over your rooms because they're too small, they're too hot, in the wrong neighborhoods, you will never make money on our platform, because you constantly have to pay a booking fee. That's when you have to understand the operating model has to inform your acquisition model. 2 different things. Think about acquisition as, I need to create the opportunity to make long-term, good, solid money. If I am short-sighted on creating the opportunity, I'm going to have a hard time making good, easy mailbox money.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to go after the cash just to have more work, that it becomes a headache.
Real estate, and this is the problem with young and new investors, you have to have a 5-year horizon perspective.
Mm.
And if you're a regular W-2 employee, you're so worried about how much cash flow am I going to get every month?
Mhm.
And the Excel spreadsheet's like 800, 900, 1,500. And then the air conditioner breaks. Oh, you made no money.
Yeah.
Or Nobody wants to fill your room because the rooms are tiny, right? Like the reality of it is your first year as an investor, you're going to make more on your tax return than you are in cash flow.
Hmm.
And then like the reason why you're doing this is because you want other people to pay down your debt so that you put in $30,000, $40,000 into a property and now you own $300,000 of an asset. Even if somebody else is paying for it, the asset that you're picking up, that's what's building wealth. And these tenants and members will pay down your debt
Mhm.
and your house will appreciate. And that's how you build wealth.
And for the first one, it's like you don't want as much risk because you're getting your feet wet. You're still W-2. You don't have as much capital, all of that stuff. So you need to kind of play it safe the first few or.
Yeah, it's hard to hit home runs on your first swing.
Okay.
So the people who buy 14-bedroom houses thinking that this is going to be a cash cow and with one house I can retire, they're pulling their hair out.
Mhm.
And if they're like, I don't want to deal with it, I'm going to hire a property manager. The property manager's pulling their hair out, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and if somebody is telling you to underwrite your properties at 92 or 93% occupancy with 6 or 8% vacancy, their job is to sell you a house. And
Mhm.
that's what they're doing. Your
Yeah.
job is to be no, no, no. Like you have to have the ability to say no to deals. But if you don't know why and you're not informed on why, it's going to be hard for you to say no to deals.
Okay. This is really
What's
helpful.
what's your biggest fear as a new investor?
I guess, I guess not cash flowing enough or, I mean, I don't know if I would worry so much. I mean, I guess, yeah, but also, where the air conditioning goes out and I didn't, I'm digging into $10,000 or something or five that I didn't, anticipate. But I guess that's where you just have the reserves and you plan for that day because it's likely going to happen at some point. It will happen at some point. But I guess those kind of things are just like things breaking on the house that start to eat into my cash flow.
Mhm.
And this becomes not worth my peace of mind.
Exactly. If I were to say replace co-living property with a laundromat or a bakery or something else, right? Your mindset would change. You'd be like, oh, I need enough working capital to pay the rent, to pay my employees, to pay for my vendors. So I got to make sure if I get into this, I have enough working capital that until I grow my business, I can float this business for about 90 days or so. And if you're not, you're an idiot.
Okay.
So like you should always be able to say this extra thing we're doing should not make me lose sleep. It
Yeah.
should make me excited that I'm into something different. And your
And the
job is
capacity to scale.
to de-risk the things that are going to keep you up at night. So don't buy too much because you
Okay.
can't pay the mortgage. Don't buy in the wrong neighborhood because you don't want to be scared to go visit the house. Right? Choose the right partners you work with because you don't want to get screwed. Work with somebody who's educated who can consult and educate you along the way to buy the right property.
Okay. And
So
the underwriting, do the hosts typically do that or do the AEs do like what is that? Because I looked at
gosh, the hope is that like we educate you on how
uh-huh.
to underwrite correctly. So can we talk about this? You have a couple minutes still, or
Mhm.
you got to run? Okay.
No, I'm good.
So the beautiful thing about what you're asking is that it's really intelligent, right? Is through the process of buying your first house, you want to be able to buy a second house. So you should attack it like I need the skill in order to underwrite properties because essentially after you get into it, you're going to be looking at Zillow and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and numbers are going to start making sense to you. Very similar to when you came into your regular job, certain things didn't make any sense until you understood the backstory behind it. And now when you look at something, there's a nuanced understanding of what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So when people look at Zillow as a new investor and they say 250,000, boy, that's expensive. Experienced investors is like, I don't really care what the asking price is.
Yeah.
If the deal doesn't underwrite at a price that makes my math work, I just go find another deal. So this idea of FOMO, this idea of FOBO,
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest things that new investors will have to overcome because it's just a math exercise. You don't look at deals that don't underwrite correctly, and then you look at the deals that do, and now you start punching holes in them to figure out a way to say no. And my God, at the end of the day, some of these deals pop up with
Mhm.
enough reasons to say yes. And then you have to have enough gumption, enough huevos to be like, yeah, let's go. I'm going to go jump into this thing. I have enough confidence that I have eliminated and de-risked enough, and willing to learn, right? I'm going to have enough fitfo to be like, hey, I'm going to figure it out as I go. I just can't get into a poor deal where I'm required to put more money into it because I don't have any more money.
Yeah. So yeah, so the whole goal is just de-risk it as much as possible, play it safe. Those
Yeah.
things can come later if you want on your fifth property or something.
Why do you look at co-living as an investment exit versus Airbnb or long-term or midterm renting the nurses? Like, why are you intrigued by co-living?
Well, I think it's the only investment where you get a reward emotionally back.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the cash flow is there. Like we all need cash flow to even just scale and meet our own goals. But I think, yeah, there might be different types of headaches compared to Airbnb, but it's still going to be less work. And then yet you're making an impact that even the government isn't, making. So I don't know. I think it's just I can sleep good at night knowing like someone that was in their car is now in my house because they can't afford to live closer to their job or something, So
It's
that's kind of
amazing.
what it comes down to. Yeah.
So one of my favorite sayings is without margin, there is no mission. So unless you're a philanthropist and your husband, sold Amazon and it looks like Jeff Bezos, right? It's hard to get into this space only for the mission. The reason why our model works the best way that it does is because the mathematics, our math is better than most other exit strategies. So the math works. And the secondary residual impact of what we're doing is that we're putting on affordable housing to help address this problem. But if you are upside down and you're paying out of pocket because you bought poorly and you operate poorly, that mission will start to get less value, less value, less value. And you're going to be like, I can't do this because I'm not making any money.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of it is the better you get at the real estate investing side, the more impact you'll have on the social impact
Mm-hmm.
side. So it's like they're not counter, they're actually on the same side of the ledger, they're on the same team, but the skill set that you're seeking, you have to get better as a real estate investor so that you can do more good.
Yeah. And I think, even just with like Airbnb, you need so much competition. You need to be creative with your theme and your designs and all this stuff and really sell it. And that only works for a certain percentage of people who have that bandwidth to compete,
Okay. So you're now talking about the top 5%.
Mhm.
So in my world of my life, I've always wanted to be in the top 5%. So even in our marketplace, there's competition. There
Yeah.
is this idea of like,
Yeah.
bring your houses to our platform and they'll automatically work. That's not the best way to look at it because
Yeah.
people like me, I'm competing with you and I'm trying to beat your ass every single
Yeah.
day because revenue is revenue, right? I want my house to be the best looking listing. I want my description to be the most eye catching. I want my photos to be the most appealing. I want my experience in my house to be the best because once I get that revenue in my house, I want it to stay as long as possible. But that initial portion of getting that person into the house, here's the differential. PadSplit doesn't put people in your houses, and people have to learn that. All they do is put eyeballs on your listing.
Yeah.
That human will make the decision whether they want to book your house or not. And a lot of different determinants, price, location, availability, that's real.
Mhm.
But we're humans. We look at the listing. I look at the tile. Like, think about YouTube or TV or Netflix. Like, you're just scanning these little tiny squares to decide what you want to consume. Same exact thing. If Catherine, you paid a lot of money and you're like, I'm going to save $250, I'm going to take photos with my cell phone, I say thank you, because I'm not competing with you at all.
Mhm.
I walk past you to compete with the other person that understands, as a business owner, how do I optimize this business on this platform? The platform will give you all the tools to either be amazingly excellent or average as hell.
Yeah.
Your job is to decide on which scale that you want to be on. My challenge to you guys is we can do affordable housing well. We can treat it like a business. The more people that book, faster time to earnings. The more people that stay, the longer time to earnings.
Mhm.
That's the business that if people think, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and list my doors on PadSplit and I'm just going to make money, you're going to be unpleasantly disappointed.
Yeah. And I
Because
think,
our
yeah.
consumers have choice.
Yeah. And I think just not doing it just for the cash flow, but understanding, like, if you truly want to like accommodate your members, then you're not going to cut the room in two and put them in a closet, like you'll do what you can to, like, you put yourself in their shoes. And I think that's where, you see hosts that come on that are just like in it for the revenue, but they don't care about the human experience of it and stuff. So
I wouldn't go that far. I think that at some point they understand the value add that they're doing, right? And that's more of like a big global idea. And at scale, you kind of just look at it like, oh, I found a machine that if I just keep pumping out these little Honda Accords, are going to give me back the expected return. That's the
yeah.
Excel investor. At the end of the day, you're still helping to solve the affordable housing crisis. But what I'm saying is internal to in your own business. Everybody can dial it in a little bit more. Everybody can improve a little bit more.
Mhm.
And if you're improving every day, your total business is better. That's essentially all I'm saying, is that like everybody has the opportunity to do better. I just went through an entire exercise with the hosts that I work with. Their listing title used to say renovated house in Atlanta. And then I was like, oh my God, like, we can totally enhance that. We can use ChatGPT. We can use other people's examples. Like, don't be original. Be the greatest copier ever. Take from him, take from her, take from him, take from her, put it into your business and make it compete, versus standing back and be like, hey, you guys need to pay for marketing. No, you need to be a better operator.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Well, thank you. This is really helpful.
Love talking with you. I can't wait till you put your first house on, like,
I'm excited.
because there's so many things. This is like swimming. I can explain to you how to kick your legs. I can explain to you how to move your arms. But until you toss your ass in the pool, it's hard to actually understand how to start swimming.
You can't. I mean, it's the process of just buying your first house, when you're young and stuff. So I think it's similar, and excited for like the next time when it gets easier, and then feeling more confident with the additional properties added to the portfolio and stuff. So
yeah. So I'm excited for you. Welcome to the game.
thanks. Are we good?